Senator, what are some of the things that you're working on right now in Washington?
Well, as we've talked before, I'm very much in the middle of this battle over reforming Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Yeah.
Right now, 95% of all secondary mortgages in the country are managed by and controlled by the government. And the American taxpayer is in the first line of defense, if you will, on the hook for any risk in the housing market in terms of guaranteeing and covering that debt, which is about $5 trillion worth of mortgages. And I have legislation that I've worked in a bipartisan fashion on with my colleague, Senator Johnson from the Banking Committee and others, that would wind down Fannie and Freddie and then create a system in which the private sector capital has to come into play first. The mortgages that are brought into the system are very tight and strong mortgages, no more of the toxic mortgages. And then we create a government fund through the mortgage system as a backup in case there are troubles, even after the private sector has had to pay the first 10% of any losses. The experts say that our system makes it so that it's extremely unlikely that the taxpayer will ever have to step in and face some kind of a bailout again in the future.
I know, as we've talked about, that there's been a lot of special interest money and resources and time that's been spent to try and defeat this bill. Has that altered the course at all of this bill? Has it slowed it down or caused you to make some concessions in the bill?
Well, no, it hasn't. Fortunately, you're right. There's a lot of folks who have been attacking the bill because they don't like one aspect of it or another. And, in fact, some very heavy investors in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac who don't want to see Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac wound down have been very active in attacking. But the bottom line is we have not made concessions other than those that we felt were justified by policy. We tried very hard to broaden the base for this bill and strengthen its support. It has a majority support, but we're trying to get a supermajority level of support. And so far, those efforts have not been successful. But primarily, that's because we aren't going to make changes to the bill that would either make it less effective or would start putting political objectives into the legislation.
You know, one observation that sort of just dawned on me while we were talking about this is that everything that I've heard has come in the form of a press release from a private group, many of whom that I agree with on most issues. But I haven't had a single listener call up the show or send me an email or anything else saying, hey, I'm really concerned about the Johnson-Crapo bill. You need to do something about that. Whereas on other issues, I hear endlessly about other things. But there doesn't feel to me like there's any kind of a grassroots opposition to this bill. It's mainly from private groups who are opposed to it.
I think you're right, and actually I'm glad to hear that your experience is the same as ours in my office. These ads haven't generated the response. And frankly, I think part of the reason is because the ads are so over the top. I mean, they're just blatantly inaccurate. In fact, one organization called factcheck.org analyzed one of the ads that was run against me and other senators on this bill and said that it was, just completely unjustified. The facts in it were just not true. And I think that people intuitively figured that out because it was such an overreach. But that's also kind of a credit to the intelligence of the Idaho voters and the folks in Idaho who pay very close attention to these kinds of issues.
All right, our guest this morning, U.S. Senator Mike Crapo, on his weekly call. Senator, thank you very much. I appreciate your time as always.
Hey, thank you. I look forward to next time.